Your brother. Anyway, I said let's jump straight to our first topic here, and I'd like to talk about some of our favorite films of the year. I'm quite curious to see what you guys are going to come up with, and I think I'm going to go down my list, and it's not quite in particular order, but if some of us have similar things on our list, which I kind of doubt number 5 will be on any of your lists, we'll see about that. And I will kick things off with my list here.
Okay.
So number 5, I think one of my favorite films of the year, although while critics were kind of divided on it, and I've had really interesting conversations with people who did not like this movie, who did like this movie, and I acknowledge all the flaws in it, yet it speaks to me on a personal level. Godzilla, King of the Monsters is my number 5 film of the year.
I still have to see that one.
Yeah.
And the reason why it's so high on my list, despite it being like one of the films I was really looking forward to this year, is the acknowledgement of the fact that this movie was directed by a big fan of the kaiju films, the Japanese Heisei and Showa era type stuff. And as great as it was to kind of see King Ghidorah, Rodan, and Mothra make it to the Hollywood big screen with like amazing effects and crazy sounds, the problem with the film that a lot of critics had was it was a little bit too cheesy. It was a little too much fan service going on, and the overall human plot was just dumb. And a lot of excuses that kaiju fans like myself have always brought up is that, well, Godzilla films are generally like that in the original films, so it's fine. And while I agree with that, there were a lot of subtle things throughout the movie that, while I loved it as a kaiju fan, I am more of a legendary Godzilla fan, and there were a lot of things that Gareth Edwards did with the 2014 film that I felt like really separated this Godzilla from the original Japanese run to kind of give him his own identity, but still carry the spirit of Godzilla. But I felt like the film was kind of taking steps back towards appealing to the fans while kind of alienating potential new fans of this Godzilla. So that's kind of why it's so high on my list. Yes, I still loved it despite its flaws, but I kind of wish it carried over more of what I loved about the direction of the Godzilla 2014 film. Did any of you guys have any comments about what I said or disagreements?
Well, I'm glad that you liked it because it is on my list of movies to watch. I just haven't got around to it. I did enjoy the first one. I wouldn't say it was one of my favorites of the year, but it was cool. And the trailer for King of the Monsters looked really cool. So I'm glad that you enjoyed it as a fan of Godzilla.
And that's the other thing that some people think may have gone against is that trailer that came out that got everyone so hyped came out a year before the movie was actually going to come out.
Whoa.
And so while the hype was high during that time, there was a long wait until the actual movie came out. So it's like,
they lost interest? Is that what that
it
was?
may have dampened because
It's a long time to release a trailer before a movie.
That's true. That's true.
It is. And that's why some people are saying like, well, maybe with the marketing of like the upcoming Godzilla vs. Kong, they want to wait until we're closer to the release date before they start to release that first trailer to kind of show what's going on.
Is that the next one?
That is the next one, which I am looking forward to it, but I am worried because, like I said, I kind of prefer legendary Godzilla 2014. Because, I mean, like, one last bit I'll say on this before we have to move on is they got Bear McCreary, a music composer who did the God of War score on the PS4. He came to do the Godzilla King of the Monsters score, and he really harkened back to the original Heisei music style and all that, and it sounded really cool for what it was. But my problem with that is I actually like Alexander Desplat's unique Godzilla score because while it doesn't sound like the original Godzilla theme, it still has that vibe to it, and there's like a frantic, bombastic tone to it that really got me on the edge of my seat the first time I heard it in IMAX. And again, while I love the original Godzilla theme, it just didn't really feel like it tonally fit this incarnation of Godzilla. So with Godzilla vs. Kong, when that comes out, I'm hoping that they'll probably continue to have Godzilla theme, but I do hope they incorporate Alexander Desplat's score as well, because I really feel like that helped solidify the identity of this legendary Godzilla to separate him from, say, like Shin Godzilla or the Heisei Godzilla, but still keep in spirit with that. So I think moving on to number 4 here, and I'm quite curious to see if any of you guys got this on your list. It was actually really difficult for me because when I first saw this movie, I really enjoyed it, and I don't really have any initial flaws on it from what I can remember. But my number 4 is Joker.
That's another one I haven't seen that I've been meaning to. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, like, it was really hyped up for a time. Some controversy around it, but when I finally saw it, I really thought it was a compelling film. And I'll admit this much. I don't think I've seen Taxi Driver. Have any of you seen it?
Yes.
I have seen Taxi Driver.
I love Taxi Driver.
Yeah, I like that one.
There were some big comparisons to that, but they were also saying, like, Joker is very much a Martin Scorsese-style film. And I am somewhat of a big fan of some of his films that I've seen, as limited as may be. And I really thought Joker was a compelling cautionary tale and an interesting take on the famous DC villain, Joker. And I really enjoyed it. Like, I'm trying to remember, like, if I had any initial problems with it. Maybe the pacing was kind of, like, slow on some parts, but I still think it flowed very well. You guys said you haven't seen it?
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet.
But you are interested in seeing it, Caesar.
Yeah, I'll watch it. I'm pretty sure it's going to come out on video soon, so I'll watch it as soon as that happens. But yeah, I don't get out to the movies too often because of my daughter.
No, that's totally fair.
I usually just go watch like cartoons and animated movies, but
but yeah, no, I mean the Joker movie joined the $1 billion club.
Yeah, it did really well.
Yeah, no, it did really well. I am a little worried because I think they said they're talking about making a sequel.
No,
and I'll get into this topic later because I did want to bring it up to you guys because for some of you who may know, we're closing the end of December. There's still a couple movies that technically I could be reviewing. And I do have one in the works right now with episode 9 of Star Wars.
Yeah.
But I did see one other film that I didn't quite review, and I was contemplating whether or not I wanted to do so. I probably won't. But I want to talk to you guys more about this, probably like on the later end of this podcast. So before I move on, did you have any interest in seeing Joker or...
I did. I was a little anxious about the violence that I'd heard about, and I've seen a lot of villain movies that, you know, they make the main character the villain, and I think I'm just a little, I don't know, burned out by that.
Well, if I could alleviate you a little bit here, the violence thing was totally blown out of proportion.
Really, was it?
Yeah, like a lot of people were worried about how it might incite violence, things like that, and really, it's not the most violent movie I've ever seen, and there's only like maybe like a couple kills in there, but they're not really graphic at all. They're very fleeting. Narratively, they make sense to the plot of the Joker coming to rise. And if you're squeamish on violence, I really don't think you have anything to worry about. Maybe there's like one death that could be, but even then, it's like...
To be honest, I'm not too squeamish on violence, although I find that Tarantino sometimes crosses the line for me. Sometimes.
This is not a Tarantino film. You don't have to worry about that.
I was more just burned out from watching these anti-heroes, I think. And I do have interest in seeing it. I think I will wait until like Caesar comes out on video on like another streaming device if it does that.
I think it's a really good character study. And knowing your background in fascination with indie films, I'd be really curious to see what you take away from it, whether if you really do think it hits the mark or maybe it was blown out proportions.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing it just for a filmmaker's standpoint of like seeing how the cutting works and how it's put together visually as a story. I'd be interested in that. Yeah.
Yeah, because I could back up visually. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Audibly, it's amazing. That there's like a lot of care that went into this film, and I highly recommend it. It's a really good movie, and yeah.
Like Morella was saying, that's why I want to see it too, because I heard it was a really well made movie, well acted and stuff. But I was just never interested in like learning about the Joker's backstory. That's sort of what I liked about the character, that he was so mysterious. Like,
and that's totally fair. Like a lot of fans,
but from what I've heard, it's like it's just a standalone. So I'm gonna assume it's just this is not part of like the whole DC universe or anything, right?
Not really, but we'll talk more about that probably later.
Okay.
But moving down my list, and I'm quite curious to see maybe if Caesar, at least you might have this on your list.
Let's see.
Avengers Endgame.
That's in my honorable mentions.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. That wasn't on my top 5. I mean, it's really close to being on there. I guess maybe just because it kind of came out in earlier in the year, and I've kind of seen it a few times already. But I guess that alone should put it on my top 5 because I've seen it more than any of the other movies.
Well, I think for me personally, Avengers Endgame, why I have it on the top of my list so much is that I've watched the very first Iron Man, like that was made like maybe over 10 years ago now.
Whoa, 10 years. What?
I think it was 2008 when it came out.
I remember seeing that.
Yeah. And I think it's either 2000. Yeah, no, it was 2008. And the first Avengers movie, if I remember correctly, was either 2009 or no, it was 2012.
Wow.
So seeing the whole 21, I think it was 21 film span over the last 10 years to finally get some of those character arc conclusions, especially with Captain America. Like his storyline, obviously everyone goes to Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark. I remember I first loved Iron Man when it came out, but as like the films went on, I started to think, oh, God damn it, Tony Stark is a dumbass. He's a selfish dick.
It seems like as the movies progressed, he became more of like a jerk and like just not
you guys,
as likable.
I couldn't do it past the first film. I saw him in there and I classified him, you are a giant jerk. I don't want to see you up on screen. And maybe I'm just very sensitive to that kind of thing.
No, that's totally fine. Like some people say that about Doctor Strange, saying like, oh yeah, Doctor Strange, he's a little too much of a douchebag.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And yeah, no, you're not alone in thinking that. And the way Endgame kind of wraps up on his arc overall, I think did a fantastic conclusion on that.
Yeah.
But for me personally, it was Captain Steve Rogers' story that really appealed to me, and how they kind of concluded with that character and kind of passing the mantle. And it even brought me to tears the way the film wrapped up. So I think it had that emotional connection for me, despite what Scorsese says about some Marvel films. But at the same time, I also enjoyed the cinematic action between like this big tyrant who killed over half of all life in the universe. And it was just really epic to see everyone come together to take down the Mad Titan.
Yeah. They did a really good job wrapping up all the movies. And yeah, like you said, it was impressive. It was cool.
And moving down on my list for number 2, and this was kind of hard to place, especially with what I got for number 1. But number 2 for me personally was Jojo Rabbit.
That's on my list. I love that movie.
I was pleasantly surprised by it. I was kind of half expecting to go in to see kind of like a Mel Brooks style satire movie, which it had those tones. It had that dark comedy there.
Are we talking spoilers before, like, since?
I'm going to afraid no, because it came out recently, I think in November. And then, or at least October.
Yeah, I think that's smart. And then it's like some of us haven't seen some of the movies we're talking about.
Yeah,
too, so.
I try to be vague, even with reviews that I have put down as spoilers. Cool. I'm going to be vague about it. Jojo Rabbit, like I said, it had great dark comedy. Like some people were skeptical about having a New Zealand Jewish guy portray Hitler. Like there was some people were worried about that. But I really think he pulled it off in a way where he kind of satirized the character, but it made sense to how Jojo, the kid who wants to become a Nazi, would idolize Hitler and kind of see him like that in a way.
Yeah.
But there were like a lot of great emotional moments there.
Yeah, I agree.
And I'm a big admirer of like World War II films. Like I like to understand the struggles and the horrors that go through it to kind of like reflect on society nowadays. It's very fascinating to me and something we should not forget. And it's one of those kind of stories where some people kind of described it as what's that one Jewish girl's notebook? There was
A Diary of Anne Frank.
Yeah, Anne Frank's The Notebook, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there was some comparisons to that. I'm not too familiar with that story.
I could see that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The movie was good, and there's parts of that too, without giving too much away. But
no, just with the way the movie went, where it's like, oh yeah, you're kind of enjoying like this journey, like maybe the kid's gonna learn something, but then suddenly something happens and you didn't expect it, but it felt so natural. Mm-hmm. And it really puts the true horrors of what war can do for everyone.
Yeah, it was really good. I really like Sam Rockwell in that movie. I think he's probably a supporting actor for the year. For me, it's probably my favorite. Yeah, I
really do hope, and I'm probably wrong because I'm not really good with predicting the Academy, but I'm hoping he'll get Best Supporting Role.
Yeah, because he was really good.
He was fantastic, and I loved his arc as well.
Yeah.
And before we get to number 1 on my list, I do want to bring up a couple disappointments that I had.
All right.
And I'm quite curious to see if any of you guys are going to have a similar opinion on this or disagreements here. In no particular order, here are some of my biggest disappointments of the year. Starting on the top of my list, The Dead Don't die.
Oh,
I didn't see that one,
yeah.
but I wanted
Did you
to
see it,
now.
Marla?
I heard the really bad reviews and I got crushed, and now I can't see it.
Well, let me just say what I did, because I don't know if I did a review on my channel or not about this, but when I first saw the trailers for it and I heard about the director, and I apologize if I don't have his name up here right now, but the type of sense of humor that the trailer was showing, I really liked the dry humor and kind of like the realistic reaction one might have where it's like not over the top zombie-esque or anything like that.
Yeah.
And I was really looking forward to it. And when I went to the movie, it was there, but as I was told, the director has a tendency to really drag out dialogue to try to make it as natural as possible. But the problem that I had there is like, while I like the context of what they're talking about, it took way too long to get there. And it just kind of disengaged my hook into this movie. I didn't hate this movie. I liked conceptually what was happening. Maybe the ending was a little too goofy for my taste. I would like there to be some sort of resolve. And I get the underlying message of what the director is trying to say. But what originally hooked me was the type of humor. And I love that kind of humor. I don't see that often. I just wish it flowed a bit better and would have been more fun to kind of hear the natural, cynical take on what the zombie apocalypse could mean. So that's why it kind of disappointed me. Again, I didn't hate it, but I have no desire to see it again.
So was the humor from the trailer in the movie, or was it?
It was just padded out in the movie.
Okay.
Like it took a while to get there.
I have a question. The director, Jim Jarmusch, is this your first
It is.
movie with him? It's interesting because the humor that you guys see in the trailer is something I don't quite associate with him as much. But he does have this talent, in my opinion, because I don't know how I would create this, of making the characters do practically nothing and finding it interesting.
Yeah.
And dragging out that like the speech and the dialogue is really naturalistic, and like I really enjoyed Only Lovers Left Alive.
I think you bring up a good point, because I was actually told that if this is the first of that director's movie someone is seeing, they don't recommend The Dead Don't Die.
Yeah, it's
and
too
that was
weird.
the mistake that I did.
Oh, it's fine.
Well, I mean, it's by accident, but I was told a lot of his other films are great, and this is probably like one of his weakest and the poorest way to introduce to his style.
It looks like he was trying to go mainstream when, in my eyes, in my heart, he's kind of an indie guy.
Oh, no, straight up. After seeing the movie, he is, and I probably blame the marketing team or the distribution team that picked up his film.
Yeah, it feels like someone got involved especially with that ending, because I read the reviews and I've read the spoiler reviews.
Yeah. And
are you still going to watch it?
I really want to, because I like the director, and
I think you'll probably like it for what it is. It's just, I guess I was expecting more of a Shaun of the Dead vibe.
Oh.
Yeah.
Like that level, dry humor, but frantic and still fun.
Yes.
Moving down my list, I'm quite curious to see if you guys have seen this or not, but one of my biggest disappointments of the year was The Addams Family.
I haven't seen that one.
I haven't seen it.
And one of the main reasons why that disappointed me so much is they really took to heart that they wanted to animate the characters not so much to like the Hanna-Barbera cartoons, but more in the original style of the New Yorker cartoon. And I thought it was great. Like, it was very stylized looking and had like interesting shapes and silhouettes. And I was hoping because of that, we'll get some really interesting animation, arc motions, all that kind of stuff. And it was just very stiff animation. I was not fond with it. And there were a couple characters who kind of looked really ugly to me. And I think I would have forgave it if the animation was like a little more elastic. Not quite Hotel Transylvania, but just something like bouncy or something. Just to really accentuate those movements. And there were hints of it throughout, but I don't know. The animation just really turned me off. And
yeah, the trailer didn't really sell me on it. It seemed like that. Like the designs looked, just everything from the backgrounds and the designs, it just looked uninspired. Like,
and even the humor was not that coherent. I think like there were a couple of things in there that were kind of funny, but like one example of a joke that was in the trailer that I didn't think worked even in the movie was the whole like red balloon thing where Morticia's like, normally there's a killer clown attached to the other end of these things. And it's like, I feel like you could have reworded that so the punch would have been better.
Yeah.
But throughout the whole movie, it was kind of like that. And I don't know. It's like, again, I didn't hate it. I thought it was okay, but I'm a big Addams Family fan.
I do really like the live action movies and I'm a fan of Addams Family too.
And I'm a huge fan of the 1960s black and white sitcom show.
Yeah.
Love the tone, love the dialogue in that, and it just really wasn't there here.
Mm-hmm.
Despite claiming that it's going to stick to its roots and more closer to like the 1960s show. So that's that. And the last thing I have on my disappointment list, which again, I don't know if you guys will echo this or not. It really depends if you're a Disney hater or not. And that is The Lion King, as I quote, remastered.
I haven't seen it because
principles.
Yes. That movie was a real big disappointment for me because for a while, the best Disney live action remake for me was Jon Favreau's The Jungle Book. I thought they did a really good job there, kind of like not quite retelling the same story, changing up a little bit at the end, trying to make its own identity. And while everyone says, oh, look how great the visuals are, personally, I didn't think they were great in some spots, especially with the wolf cubs in the Jungle Book. But I gave it a pass. I mean, like, I'm super picky when it comes to visuals, especially hyper-realistic stuff. So I was really looking forward to what Jon Favreau could do with The Lion King, maybe like change it up a little bit. But as time went on, a lot of people realized that he was only interested in trying to make this as hyper-realistic as possible, which really rubbed a lot of animators the wrong way because these lines, they did not emote really at all. And I was heavily disappointed because Jon Favreau pretty much did not change the story at all.
Yeah.
Hence why I keep calling it a remaster, because it's pretty much the same exact story.
Yeah.
Some people told me they didn't like some of the reamped music, which I kind of agree with. The music was kind of meh to me.
Did they redo all the songs?
They did.
Oh.
They redid all the songs. And one of my biggest disappointments, which is kind of what I've always had with these Disney live action remakes or just Disney films nowadays, is I always found the villain to sound kind of boring to me.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy they got to voice Scar in this, he's a great actor and all, but he just kind of sounded like another guy to me. Like, he didn't really have that malice undertone to him or anything like that. Whereas like Jeremy Irons, he has like sniveling like gravitas to him. But I believe it was Chiwetel Ejiofor who voiced Scar in this one. I don't know. I really felt like it was kind of half-assed in some parts. Well, a lot of the voice actors kind of felt like that to me. And again, with some of the music, like some people were saying, like, "Can you feel the love tonight?" I think what was it? Danny Glover, who I believe played Simba, the adult version, and Beyonce played Nala. And when they were singing, like, I don't know if Danny Glover, I could be getting the names mixed up here, but when Simba was singing and Beyonce's Nala was singing, you can kind of tell the lack of the different styles between the two. Like, Beyonce kept doing like what some people call vocal acrobats during some parts where it's like, you're just holding a note here. And that's what Simba's doing, but she's just going, hey, 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 hey. And it's like, and that turned off a lot of people, and I don't blame them. I guess overall what I'm saying is like, it just, I was really hoping Jon Favreau would have delivered the same kind of quality and intrigue as he did with the Jungle Book, but he did not. Therefore, I kind of felt disappointed by it.
Yeah, it's too bad because I am a fan of his movies. He usually does really good. And yeah, I enjoyed the Jungle Book too, but yeah, it's too bad that he just did an exact copy of the original one.
Personally, what I think, and I can't confirm this, but I feel like he only really signed up for it so that he can get the credit rights and like the head of the Mandalorian project. And Disney's like, okay, yeah, we're going to give you full reign to do your thing over here. But do you mind if we can use some of your technology and maybe have you just direct the Lion King remake for us? And he's probably like, yeah, sure, I don't mind doing that. I have no basis for that. I'm just saying, like, I don't know.
That's a good observation.
I feel like he put way more attention into making The Mandalorian than he did with The Lion King.
Yeah, The Mandalorian's coming out great.
And now, my number one film of this year, which I don't know if you're going to like this or not, Morella, but I think for me personally, what really spoke to me, what got me emotional, what got me excited, and all around feeling pretty good about it, number one will go to Klaus.
Woohoo!
Klaus was my number one film of the year, and if you have seen the review that Morella and I have done, we go into more depth about what worked for me and what didn't work for me. But overall, it was just a real delight to see 2D animation and such a theatrical quality beyond what we probably have seen. And I really have high hopes that it will appeal to a lot of people and like become more mainstream as its presence is on Netflix. So
Yeah.
I won't go into too much detail there because I'm sure we'll be talking about more and more. That's my number one. I just thought it was well acted, well animated,
Yes.
very beautiful, a very good story. Not the best story on my list, mind you, but I enjoyed it well enough, and I feel like it's going to really transcend the mark of time, and it'll be a timeless classic for sure, in my opinion. So did any of you guys have any thoughts on my number one choice here? Was that on any of your lists?
I did see Klaus. It's not on my list, but I did enjoy it. I thought maybe some of the acting and the animation was a little bit too much, like a lot of movement.
That's
Too much
fair.
on ones. Too much on
Was
ones.
that what it was?
Yes.
Something seemed off. Like if it was
Oh yeah.
like if they were trying too hard, like a lot of movement to like the voices didn't really match to like the crazy action that was going on.
That's right.
It's sort of like, I don't know, like I don't want to say student because the animation was great, but like if a student was trying really hard to impress his instructor, and the instructor had to say tone it down a little bit, like,
no.
like match the dialogue, some spots, but the animation was really, it looked good. It was technically it was great. Like you said, the story was okay, but I am really glad that they're still making 2D films for sure. And like Netflix, I think made the right choice, like backing this
Yeah.
one and supporting 2D films. Like you said, it was a really high quality movie for sure. It was good.
Yeah, I convinced my mom to watch it, and she really, really enjoyed it. So she's like, "Yeah,
Nice.
I'm ready to watch it again now." I'm like,
Yeah,
"Whoa,
I would watch it
Mom.
again for sure.
Whoa, Mom! Hey,
Right away, she wanted to watch it again.
no, she meant like, "Oh yeah, we can watch this again for Christmas," and she never says that.
Oh, that's high
Got mother's
praise.
approval. That's good.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, no, I really hope that this movie does well for Sergio,
Yeah,
his studio. And I'm really hoping that Netflix will continue to back him and
Yeah.
we'll
Yeah.
try to get more films in a similar engine style.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what he does next for sure.
So that will be my top list of the year.